YouTube workflow video. This is the one that you've all been asking me to do, the one that you've all been waiting for, and I get asked this question a lot. Tamer, how is it possible that you can possibly be doing a video a week, writing an article on your website, just being ridiculously and sickeningly everywhere and omnipresent on every single social media channel? How can you possibly have the time to do all of that and run and grow a business? And the secret is I don't do all of that. And this is what this video is about. It's going to show you my entire workflow, but what I'm going to be doing over the entire coming few videos is actually breaking it down in much more detail, because I looked at it, and remember, this channel here is going to be using YouTube and the growth of this channel as a case study. And I thought, hey, why don't I just walk through the entire process, first of all on a higher level, and then each video after this is going to be breaking down each part of the process in detail. So we're going to be looking at the process, the workflow, who does what, the strategy, but also on top of that, we're going to be looking at the equipment. How do we come out with the topics? How do we come out with the videos to do? How do we actually then repurpose it and get it edited? And how do we actually get it sort of done into an article and social media? The whole works. We're going to be looking at everything and breaking it down over the following few videos, and this is a series. And yes, this sounds like a course. It is a course, and it's entirely free, because this is not actually my main area of business. My main area of business, as you know, is to help you and other businesses grow their business and scale it really fast. And we use some of these processes inside our businesses to help other businesses grow. And what we're going to be doing is applying it as a case study here for this channel. So you're going to be able to see all of it, and it's going to be easy to apply both to your YouTube channel, but also in your business as you're trying to pass processes and workflows out. Are we ready to get on with this? This video here is about the high-level workflow, actually phase one, when I first started out, and how it was completely overwhelming, how I had to potentially do everything myself, and then how that progressed into being able to actually have a proper process and a workflow and a team. Ready to get on with it? Let's get on with the video. Hit it. So when I first started out this YouTube channel, I was pretty much a solopreneur by myself trying to grow a business. And I wanted to make sure that my strategy was basically to position myself in front of my target audience, yourself, be able to grow this channel. So I wanted YouTube to be able to A, provide me with a revenue stream as the channel grew, but B, be able to actually promote my videos and say this is good stuff, so that it can actually target the audience that I wanted to watch the channel, but also potential sponsors down the line. And my target audience were split up into two potential markets. One of them, the ones that are really going to gain from the value that they watch on the channel here and actually go and apply it themselves. And that's absolutely fantastic, because that was one of the things I wanted to do to start this channel, was to be able to provide value and give back. However, there's also another segment, which is the ones that are going to go to the website and be able to say, hey, what services does this person provide, and can they help me with growing my business? So that was the main strategy of what I wanted to come up with. And I realized that if I'm going to be able to do that, I needed to have a pretty rigorous strategy for my YouTube channel, so that I can actually position it in the right way. And that meant I probably needed to be able to record some good stuff, come up with really good ideas and stay consistent, and be able to then after that be able to say, right, let me edit this and make it look professional, and be able to then repurpose it so that it can be written on the article on my website, so that when people come to the website, they see good content and material, and also Google ranks it as well from an SEO perspective, and it's searchable, but also be able to be on social media to be able to promote that. And I thought, hey, let's break this down, because this just seems like too many things to do. That's exactly what I did. Was I basically went through and I said, right, so what do I need to actually do? So I thought, okay, I need to start off with my strategy up here. And then I thought, okay, so once I've got my strategy, my YouTube strategy, I need to look at my idea. Basically after that, I need to research the idea and then be able to sort of plan and outline the topic that I'm going to do. I don't do a script pretty much, because I just want to talk and sound natural and be natural, because I believe, from my perspective, scripts work for some people. It doesn't work for me. It makes me sound very robotic. But anyway, I didn't want to do that, so I wanted to just be able to talk. And that's probably why some of my videos are incredibly long, because I just go on and on and on. But hopefully you find some value in there. Right, so the next thing after that was to be able to film it, and then edit it, and then repurpose it, and then basically schedule it out to social media, and then be able to release it and promote and engage, and then analyze the results and the YouTube analytics and be able to go all the way back again. And that, to me, if I was sitting there doing all of that, that's literally complete burnout. As a solopreneur, I'm going to be a hamster in a wheel, running around, and being able to actually just not be able to grow my business or do anything else. And this was just one unit inside my business. This is not the main area of what my business is supposed to do. So there was no way I was going to be able to do all of that and run my business on the side. So I basically broke this all down, as you can see here in the yellow. I basically said, well, that's the purpose, that's the idea section, this is scope, the create bit, then we have a pre-broadcast bit, a broadcast bit, and an engage bit. And what I basically said, well, actually, I could try and go and get a VA, which is what most people do, and that VA can then transcribe some of the information, can like maybe repurpose it, write some social media material. But if I don't have the right processes in place, and this is what happens with a lot of solopreneurs that go out and hire a VA, they basically say, hey, go and do this for me, whilst they're spinning around in their hamster wheel trying to get everything else done. The VA sits there and says, what? And then there are no clear instructions, no processes, nothing, and literally the VA becomes next to useless, if not worse, because they will do things wrong, and then you going back and being able to have to edit all of that and redo it again actually might take up even more of your time. So then that doesn't work. So I thought, well, actually, let me think about this from a CEO perspective if I'm going to run my business, and let me think about this YouTube channel as a CEO. Right, if that's the case, then I need to be focusing on these things. I need to be focusing on my strategy, potentially coming up with some ideas, but maybe not always. Being able to film, I need to be there. I need to be in front of camera. I can't have I don't think they've quite perfected yet, having sort of CGI. I might look into that. But anyway, right, so then filming, and then a little bit of promoting and engaging, because I don't want to be sitting there on social media all the time. If that's what I want to be able to do, then I need to be able to basically delegate everything else out to other people. Now, obviously also when you're first starting out, you don't potentially have all the money or the financial resources to be able to hire people out. So you need to start thinking tactically in terms of who you start hiring out first, but also know that your time is more valuable. So what it will do is if it creates that space for you, you're investing money into hiring out people so that you can have time for yourself to grow the business and provide even more revenue. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting there spinning around, recording and editing videos and repurposing them and actually not letting the business grow. And where's the revenue coming in from that? It doesn't make sense. So what I thought were the most time sort of basically intensive things were this create bit here, most of it, as well as some of the pre-broadcast bit, which is basically the edit bit, the repurpose bit, and the schedule bit. I said, right, let's get some people to do that. So that meant I basically said, right, I need a creative whiz, a video editor, and I need someone, an awesome person that gets me, who is able to write basically in my voice and be able to look at the video, see what I've said in the video, and actually change that into written form and make it sound like me, actually better than me if I was to write it down. So can I find a person to do that? So that's pretty much what I wanted to do. So I said, right, okay, let's create a swim lane chart. My favorite thing, it's not my favorite thing, but I said, let's create a swim lane chart. So basically what I did was I said, right, let's have 3 lanes. And what I'm going to be able to do is basically I've got a video editor and a content repurposing person. I'm going to move these elements here, the edit, the repurpose, and the schedule. I'm going to move them to each of the sort of different sides of the places where I want to actually have them. And that's where I first started. And then I realized, hang on a minute, if I was doing everything first, that means that I didn't need to check through things. But now I'm sending this out. I don't know if the voice is going to be the right voice, if the editing is going to be according to my style. So I needed to basically introduce a new step, which is having a sign off. But also, let's be fair here. I mean, we entrepreneurs are control freaks. So pretty much in the editing process, we're going to sit there and have reviews, and then back and forth and repurpose back and forth and drive everyone crazy. And anyway, but at least it's a start. And I think that was what the important thing was. It was a start. However, when you start looking at then sort of decision points, then I started saying, well, hang on, we just need to have a little bit more decision points here. I've had a time where in a previous business, we went up to a very, very late stage and actually said, hey, this is a bad idea. Should we stop this? And actually we didn't, because no one was brave enough to take that final decision. We said, hey, we've come too far. We've done this. We've committed. We might as well go ahead. And it was a disaster after that. And things really, really were catastrophic. Had we cut our losses right, I think it was like 2 days before we delivered, I think it was like a 10-month-long project, 2 days before. And we sat down and had a meeting over a coffee with my team and basically said, is this a bad idea or should we go? And then nobody was brave enough, including me. We're not brave enough to actually take that decision. So I said, we need to have some decision stages. And what we did here was we put in a sort of a stage gate decision plan. Now, don't be surprised, don't be shocked. This isn't as hard or as sort of like, you know, complicated as it really seems. Let's zoom in a little bit and let me show you actually what I mean. So if you have a look here, basically what this is basically every single step that we've had here, this main area that we've had here, we've put a stage gate on there, which essentially means we sit there and have a sanity check pretty much. That's essentially what it means. Right. Is this actually good, and what criteria are we going to have and judge by whether or not it's good? If it is, we go ahead to the next point. If it isn't, we stop. And at each point, yes, even at the point where it's purpose, where we're looking at the strategy, we can actually have review and stage gate points where we say, hey, do we stop making the channel or not? Yes, we've come this far, but actually maybe we should stop. It's not working. It's not achieving what our strategy is telling us to do. And then the next point after that was the idea. And then so on and so forth. So do we stop working on the idea? The scope, do we stop working on the actual topic? So you might have the right idea, but the topic itself, the detail might be wrong, and we might need to change the actual topic and the way it's done. And then we stop working on the video with the create video. And then as we keep going down, it's like, you know, the repurposed content, and do we stop working on that? And so on and so forth until we get to the analyze section. So that was pretty much where, because once it's gone out, by the way, we can't stop it. So that's why there are no stage gates there. But that kind of gives you an idea of what we wanted to start doing. Is this is where you start making something that's very ad hoc into something that's systematized and is process oriented, because that's what's really going to make your business successful. It's the consistency. And I say this time and time again, it's always the consistency and making sure that you know, hey, are we doing the right thing or not? And is this according to the criteria? And where you have that analyze and feedback loops where it's actually feeding back into the process, that's when you say, right, how do we even make this better? How do we optimize this? So moving on further, I said, right, that's basically still a little bit too much work. As you can see here, it's still way too much work, way too much work. So I said, right, if I'm going to do this, I'm actually going to want to move away some of the creative process that's happening around here in terms of the editing and the repurposing. I want to trust my team, and I don't want to be sitting there like a hawk on top of them. It's not good for me, it takes up my time, it's not good for them. They feel that they don't have the creative freedom to be able to do what they want, and it's not good for anyone, and it's not good for business. So I said, right, if we're going to be able to do this, what I need to do is, instead of having just a video editor, I have a video producer who actually can have some creative input in terms of the project in each video. And that producer can also be the editor, but what you're doing here is you're looking, so here, people can wear the same hat. So you can basically be a producer and an editor, but not necessarily the case as the channel grows, they can then split into two different people, which is the case here, because in this case, I found an amazing video producer who is Justina from Purple Square Video, and what she's got is she has an editor who's also fantastic, whose name is Laura. And what I do is I basically contract out to Justina and say, hey Justina, I trust you, but this is our style. We've agreed on a process, we've agreed on the steps, we've agreed on the review stages, and once I pass on the video to you, I'm hoping that you come up with these particular results, and this is where I will check through at these particular sort of checkpoints. And the same thing with content repurposing. It goes basically to Content 10X, who have then an awesome writer called Sabrinthia, who's amazing. And basically that then starts off saying, right, we've got social media, and they also have a person who will schedule it and do social media. And that's how I first started out. So instead of me hiring in-house, I outsourced. And that's an easier way to get started off the ground, because you can find people that you trust who already are operating as freelance or as an agency, and you basically say, hey, can you help me do this? And what you need to do is you need to be able to figure out pretty much, is this going to be financially viable and feasible for you according to the strategy and what you're trying to achieve. And then obviously I've got an executive assistant, my VA from the beginning, who's now not running around with question marks, because there is a process. And on top of that, I wanted other people to do other things in the business. And at the time, when you don't have enough resources, I wasn't getting any external investment into the business. I wanted the business to run from within itself and be able to fund and finance itself. Because a lot of people sit here and say, hey, yeah, you know, I've got $1 billion and I'm going to throw at it some money and I'm going to hire a ridiculously large team. And yeah, fantastic. Yeah, but that's not who everyone is. Let's face it. So we want to be able to figure out how we actually grow this as we go from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 to phase 4. Yes, lots of phases. But anyway, so what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at basically video producer, content repurposing, executive assistant. But here is a tip. If you can't afford to bring on a team or people, find some interns, because the interns will be either free, because they will want to have the experience and it's a win-win. They get the experience and the training, you get a lot of work done, or you can also pay them a small, sort of relatively very small salary or fee if you're charging them by the hour. So I said, right, I'm going to get some interns to do a lot of the sort of the legwork, if you will, to be able to do some research, to be able to do some SEO research, and help with the community and engagement and so on and so forth. And that's exactly what I did. So I went in and I said, right, now, instead of being a burnt out solopreneur, I want to be a almost CEO, not quite there yet. And we'll talk about the quite there yet in the next video. So stay tuned. Right. Please, if you're liking this and you're finding this valuable, hit the like button and the subscribe button, because this is actually the first of many, many videos in this series where we will actually break down the entire process. Now, let me scare you a little bit. Look at this. This is the process that we started then detailing out, and we're still not there yet. But before you sort of get scared, it's actually very straightforward. Like I said in the processes video and the systems and processes video, it's very straightforward. What you just need to do is you need to map out and just work through the steps and log them down. And that's exactly what we did. So if we zoom in, we basically said, right, first step was pretty much come up with the company strategy and be able to look at the YouTube strategy. And I had to do most of that still. And like I said, in the next video, I'm going to start sort of expanding this out with a bigger team further. So stay tuned, please. Right. Okay. So I have input the company strategy, make sure that the YouTube strategy is aligned with the company strategy. That then goes on to creating an idea. Now I've got the interns also proposing ideas, so that's shared between us. Once an idea happens, they go away and they do some SEO research, and then that comes back to me to do some review and make sure that the idea is worth progressing with. Once I've approved the idea, that goes back to the interns to do some research, if you will, to find out some interesting articles, interesting videos, references, quotes that we can pick and come up with a sort of like suggestions. And then that will come back to me and I will put in my own sort of thinking and experience and other things that I sort of want to do and write pretty much an outline, a set of bullet points for me. I don't write out a script like I mentioned, but what I do is I write out basically the points that I'm going to be covering. And what I do is I literally sit there and have a look at the points. I break it down pretty much into an intro. I record the intro and stop, and then I have points. If it's a video like this, I'll just sit through and talk through it all once I've looked at the points. If it's a video like, say, for example, a top 10, then I will record each point and stop, and record each point and stop, and then my editor will sort of combine them together. So then once we've done the topic research, I will have a look and see if there are any relevant affiliate links, where it's going to go as a playlist placement, and then, like I was mentioning, the outline and script. Whoa, I went off process here. That was the wrong stage in the process. I need to even look at the playlist placement before writing out the script, because I want to make sure that I understand the affiliate links as well as other things before I even write out my sort of outline, if you will. Right, once that happens, I go on and film, and then that goes on to a narrative edit. What that means is essentially it goes to the video production. Now, we've called it a video production, not a video editing unit. So the video producer will take it and pass it on to the editor, who will then actually cut a very rough draft, which is essentially just linking everything up together and just having it into some kind of sense. Why do we need to do this? Because what happens immediately after we have that narrative cut, that goes over pretty much, if you have a look here, that goes over here to the content repurposing team. Now, what happens here is when it goes over to the content repurposing team, they will come up initially with a bunch of timestamps where they will say these particular clips here are really interesting, and they will send them back to the editor. They will say, actually, we want to have clips of these minutes, like this 30-second clip, this 15-second clip, this 1-minute clip. We want to be able to use that for social media. Now, whilst that's going on in parallel, the editor is pretty much going back to me and the producer, getting creative input, asking me to do any potential retakes or any creative input or any B-roll that needs to always happen. It's not always the case, but sometimes that does happen. But there is a sort of an ongoing review process, if you will. As that's happening, basically, what happens with the content repurposing is they'll get on with it. They don't need to see the creative edit anymore. They've just seen the narrative cut and they know they can write a blog post from it. They can pretty much go through and look at social media copy that they've done, because they've already picked the timestamps. They don't need to see the actual videos of the time of the short social media videos. They know exactly which videos they're coming up with. And then they will write out the email that goes out to my email list once a week. If you haven't subscribed, go to the website, take the quiz, subscribe, and you will get informed of this video every week. Link in the description below. And then they will write out the YouTube description copy that you see below here, as well as any social media graphics that will go with on the article on the website, as well as on the social media. And then that will be ready for final sign-off. So they don't need to have any more input from the video production team. But in parallel of that, what's happening with the video production team then is that they go through and they create a final edit that comes through for my review. And once I'm happy with that, they will then go and they will cut the social media teasers, because they don't want to cut any teasers until I've fixed the final edit, we've fixed the creative edit, and then they will do the subtitles, send it off for captioning, because again, you don't want to caption things in case we wanted to edit things out or cut timings, as well as create the thumbnail. And then all of that goes off to me for final sign off. And once we're done with that, that then gets uploaded to the YouTube channel. The video producer does that now instead of me, and will schedule it, as well as from the content repurposing side, they will upload on WordPress to the website and schedule on the social media calendars to for all the social platforms. And we will talk about what software and technologies we use in terms of project management, social media calendars in a coming video. So make sure that you've subscribed, please. Right, once that happens, we go for broadcast. We have some sort of system checks that happen beforehand, and then that happens in the broadcast. And when we look at next video, when we look at the really detailed sort of like expanded team and exactly what happens in terms of checks, because that's where we started adding even more, making sure that we've got the process right. This was a very early on process which was happening. This was actually the phase that was previous to me recording this video, and we're moving into now the next phase, which I'll talk about in the next video. And I'll also give you a way of being able to download this workflow for free, so that you can use it for yourself. So that will be also in the description below and in the next video. Right, once we've done that, we go through and start engaging once it gets released. So that gets shared on social media. I will then create some backlinks and SEO, although that is now moving over to the video producer, and we'll talk about that in the next video. As well as the interns will do some engagement to make sure that the channel ranks, the video ranks quite fast, and that there are comments and engagement that are happening initially on. As well as then I will do a live Instagram story, a LinkedIn video post, because you cannot, annoyingly, you cannot schedule a LinkedIn video on your personal profile. It's one of those things, if you schedule it, it will just come out as a link that you have to click on, and it will take you to another site to be able to view the video. But if you want to have the video sort of running straight away as you're scrolling up. You need to actually post that manually. If there are any ways actually to do that in an automated fashion, please actually write in the comments below. I'd love to hear that, because we haven't been able to find out a solution for that yet. Then I will then do engagement for the first hour, and then the analytics goes and is now shared between the interns, the video producer, who for all intents and purposes is now being pretty much a channel manager, and myself as well, in terms of how that is. So that gives you an idea of how the whole process works up until the most previous phase. Now, in the next video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breaking down that even more, and we're going to be looking at it in terms of, if now you become the real CEO of your business and this YouTube channel is growing, what are the next steps? How do you actually now start bringing in a social media manager? How do you actually start bringing in people in-house and being able to actually pass these over between one and the other and make sure that you've got the right criteria and tasks and roles in place? We're going to be doing that in the next video, so please stick around. Please write down in the comments below. I'd love to hear now who you have on your team and how your workflow is and how it compares to this one. I'll see you next time.